morning. I apologize for a few minutes late. We were hoping to be joined by one other commissioner who looks like he may be unable to join us tonight, but we want to be respectful of your time because we appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Most of you look like pretty familiar faces to our meeting, so you know the drill that we begin with some brief introductions, and then we have some items of internal business, and then we open it up for public comment because we're really out here in the communities to hear what people are thinking. So with that, I'm Rhonda Goldheim. I am an attorney at PA's Law Project by day, and by night I volunteer my time to the Police Advisory Commission. To my left,
Independent Counsel to the Police Advisory Commission.
Ben Geffen, a member of the Police Advisory Commission. I'm an attorney at the Public Interest Law Center.
And Erica Atwood, interim director for the Police Advisory Commission.
we also have some staff. Staff, want to introduce yourselves?
How you doing? Marcel Bassett, Public Affairs Specialist. I do all the engagement, community engagement, stuff like that, communications.
Anthony Arachi, Chief of Staff, Senior Investigator.
Joe Chafin, investigator.
William Michael, investigator.
Thank you. So I think that's adjourned vision for roll call. Okay. We have an opportunity to have folks had an opportunity to review the minutes, and if so, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. The next item is the report of the chair, which will, for those of you who are not familiar with the Police Advisory Commission, explain why there are so few of us. There has been some level of attrition on the Police Advisory Commission over the last extended period of time. We also, at the beginning of the year, had a transition from our long-standing executive director. We were fortunate enough to have Erica Atwood come in as the interim executive director. We are happy to report that a permanent executive director has been hired. His name is Hans Menos, M-E-N-O-S. He will be here at our October 16th Police Advisory Commission meeting at a location
To be determined.
Along with Hans will be the rest of the commissioners. The executive order that was passed in the beginning of this year calls for 13 commissioners. When fully staffed at this point, we have 4. This evening it's just me and Ben. But we are expecting in October the full complement of 13. It may seem as though we are running at reduced capacity, or in fact we are running at reduced capacity, but we have high hopes that with a permanent director, with a full complement of commissioners, that the Police Advisory Commission can really live up to its potential. I think it can be an important tool for Philadelphians, and so we are relieved and grateful that that transition that we've been talking about, I think through the end of the winter, into the spring, through the summer, is now very close to a reality. So I hope that our guests will join us again on October 16th. The location will be on our website and otherwise announced in the social media ways in which we announce our meetings. I think with that, I will pass to Erica for an update.
Sure. I'm just going to get a date. Sorry about that, guys. So typically for the executive director's report, I go over a number of things that have happened over the last few months. I usually put together some visuals, and so with regard to kind of our status of the department, as of September 2017, we have 149 open complaints. There are 40 pre-2017 complaints. The total complaints for 2017 are 124. The total cases received since our last meeting, since August 7th, and cases received from audit are full investigations that have come from the Internal Affairs Department, and we review them to see whether or not they have covered what they've done in fidelity. We've gotten no cases for that. And the total cases closed in 2017 is 20. So that's where we stand, and that's up from 14 last month. So we closed 6 additional cases.
14.
It was 14. So that's where we stand in our investigations. In terms of community engagement, the events that we've attended over the last month have been kind of the 5th Police District Town Hall and Captain's Meeting, the 16th Police District Book Bag Giveaway, the 6th Police District Book Bag Giveaway, the 24th District PDAC Meeting, and the PAC Community Meeting. We went to the transgender flag raising, Strawberry Mansion bike ride, Strawberry Mansion Day, the 35th Police District Community Day, and I facilitated a talk back for the We Shall Not Be Moved performance. And the We Shall Not Be Moved performance is part of Opera Philadelphia, which is a diverse performance that is put together, kind of a flash into the future after the move incident of 1995. Other items that we have had, one, we participated in the Use of Force Review Committee for Officer Pownell and the shooting of David Jones. We were present at Commissioner Ross's announcement of the suspension of Officer Pownell. Since our last meeting, we've had the appointment of the full complement of the commissioners. There's a case from some time ago, an Erica Kochman death case. We did our own internal review of the case and the issues. We submitted to Commissioner Ross our recommendations for the handling of that case. If anybody wants a copy of that, they're welcome to that. I have it here. We gave recommendations to him. And lastly, last week, many of you may have seen that council put forth a charter amendment for a resolution to, one, give the commission some permanency in the city budget, which will be a new precedent. And so they're asking that the PAC be funded for a minimum of $500,000. They are, and with that, there would be a charter amendment, which is going to be an interesting dialogue to have, because as of right now, the Police Advisory Commission is not in the city charter. So putting the resolution that we get funded means that we're in the charter, which is going to be, there's going to be some other movement. We just don't know what around the permanency of the commission that is going to come from City Council. We're waiting to hear what that's going to be. Sure. It would be for the overall operating budget of the department. Right now, the operating department for fiscal year 2018 is approximately $400,000. That includes staffing, that includes programming, that includes services and equipment. And it would be a mandatory. So there's been a fluctuation in the budget of the department over the years. And what that would mean is that at standard, if this resolution passes, we will have $500,000 in the city budget no matter what. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question, because I heard about the $500,000 budget line. But is there any way that the commission, my name is Dave Lipscomb, number one, but is there any way that the commission can say, hey, $500,000 is, okay, we like that, but it really is not enough. We need like 1.5 million, maybe 2 million if we're going to be effective. That's number one. And two, would it be tied to the cost of, cost of, what's that? Like the cost of increases that each year you have inflation on money.
Inflation.
Yes.
So I'll take the first part. The first part is, have we asked for more? Do we want more money?
What have you asked?
Well, we asked. I've articulated on an informal level that there is a greater need for funding for the department. I've articulated that at a minimum we should probably have close to $1 million. That has been articulated informally. We have not put in a formal request for that. It was kind of an anecdotal conversation. If you could grow to X, what could it be? That I've put out there in the universe. So City Council is aware of that. And for the increase,
The current draft resolution just says $500,000 is a minimum. It doesn't include any inflation index or anything like that.
Right.
To the extent that people want to go out and encourage their city council members to make that a more ambitious number, or to add a cost of living increase or something like that in that, seems like a good idea to me. And the other thing I just noticed that, as we said from this table before, Philadelphia's Police Advisory Commission on a per capita basis has less funding than counterpart organizations in every other big city in the country.
And we have submitted proposals for increased funding. Erica's predecessor submitted a budget that had some detailed numbers on it. So we're hoping to get back into that
And what city council person would be Councilman Jones as a public safety chairman?
yeah, Jones and Clark co-introduced that.
Okay, so we would have to go back, if they wanted to amend it, they can do that, and that would be, if we as the citizens would send some kind of letters to them or some kind of communication to them.
Absolutely.
I think support for the commission for Philadelphia is crucial for its success.
Okay, and what would you suggest? You said you had some numbers before, and you informally, you're saying $1 million. Would that be
So-
enough for the cost of living increase?
That would not, that's just the baseline.
Okay.
I would say there is the organization is called NACOL, and the National Association of Civilian Oversight Law Enforcement, NACOLE. They have a lot of information on their website that does some cost comparatives, or some budget comparatives for other cities. That is kind of where we are. We don't have a formal document that does, or at least an updated formal document that does a comparative of what does Philadelphia have versus a Chicago versus a Minneapolis versus a Los Angeles versus a Oakland. We don't have that is updated yet in terms of the budget comparative, but the information does exist. The information is public. It's out there, and that's something that I think I don't know that council has seen on that level. I just don't know.
Okay, and just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
when should we get involved with citizens before this is brought before a vote?
I mean, immediately. Like, I think because the resolution has been introduced, now's the time for traction.
Okay,
Now's the time for community intervention.
okay,
So now's the time.
all right, thank you very much.
Yes, I have never heard of you all. And I decided not an email, but I heard about you today on Facebook, and that's why I came, because I didn't even know this commission existed. So I need to know a little bit about how long you've been in operation or in existence, because I'm just not familiar. And also, how do we get more people to know about you if you need support and increased funding or even attendance at the meeting? Because right now it seems like, most of the room is the staff and part of the commission, and not so much community.
So I can working backwards, to direct people to both our website and to our social media presence is a good way for the word to spread in the community. We have been around since the late 80s. That the charge really is to work on the relations between police and community. We do that in a lot of ways. It's about transparency, it's about creating trust, it's about reaching out to neighborhoods, it's about making sure kids feel safe in their neighborhoods, that there is mutual respect between the neighborhoods and the police. It's all of those things. We have had, like any good organization over time, high points and less strong points. We are on the verge of a high point again. And so we're grateful that you joined us this evening and kind of keep track of us is there's a way that we have followers, and Marcel can assist you to get some social media alerts about our activities.
And one of the things we can do, kind of an action item for us, is that there is a document that was created in 2003 that talks a little bit about the history of the beginning of the PAC. We can make sure you get that.
One other thing I would just add is you come at the last meeting of the old Police Advisory Commission, so to speak. The new Police Advisory Commission will take effect in October, and I would encourage you to come to our meeting then. We'll have 13 commissioners present instead of 2. We'll have a new executive director. We'll be at a stage when the organization can rebuild after a period of depletion of staff and commissioners. And the support of active community members like yourself is crucial to our success. So we encourage you to keep coming.
So, 2 things. So, how does one become a commissioner?
They're appointed by the mayor. Some are recommended by council, but they're all appointed by the mayor.
Okay. And then the other thing is, so the commission takes a case like the Paula, the one with David,
Yes.
where the commissioner just, the fraternal order of police, just got on the news and all that. So the commission takes a case like that, not the fraternal order of police part, but the actual case review, and it gives recommendations to it. Help me understand how
Sure.
you work.
So I'm looking at 3 lawyers and about to start talking about something. I was like, wait, I can do this, but I'm gonna look at the lawyers first.
So we as an organization are charged with identifying patterns or practices. So we look at individual cases to inform the advisory commission on what recommendations we can make to the police commissioner and the managing director. So it's not our charge from the mayor to look at every single individual case, but we look at them, number one, to see if there are trends. And we look not just at shooting cases, but all issues that involve the police and the citizens. And we do that so it informs us, and then we can provide information both to the mayor and the managing director, and we can do liaison between the citizens and the police department.
And then what percentage of your recommendations to the mayor and commissioner get results, for lack of a better word?
So the recommendations have all been favorably received by the commissioner. I think that one of the things that we need to be clear about is that we have the authority to make recommendations about process. The case that Erica was referring to, the Passion case, we had an opportunity to make a recommendation about how investigations where there's an allegation of suicide are handled, right? We can talk about those things. What we don't have the authority to do is discipline officers. And if we see in Philadelphia, that seems to be kind of separate and apart. Right? Having a finding that there's been some misconduct doesn't always line up with discipline. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to continue to track. And again, as Ben said, I would encourage you to come to the October meeting. Hans Meadows is not from Philadelphia, but he's stepping up on Philadelphia. And so he needs to hear from Philadelphians, what are the things that are happening in your neighborhoods? What are the things that you're concerned about? What, in terms of your interactions with police, so that he can build the agenda of the Police Advisory Commission, in addition to our basic charge, really to build that agenda.
And just to say kind of a little bit on Hans, the lens that he comes from, is from a social service community advocacy lens. So while he's had a relationship with law enforcement, his lens is really about community engagement.
And so you listed that you all went to these different community events.
Yes.
What part of the commission does that serve?
I don't think
So you go to these community events, right, to let folks know that you exist, or to get resources?
Know that we exist, interact with the community that's there. We are in kind of in public awareness mode. And so we're going to events to let folks know that we're here because we know there's a dearth of knowledge about how we function, where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. And so at this stage of the game, it's really about getting out there and letting folks know that we exist. Go here and then come down. Yes.
Hello, my name is Karen Megan. I'm the president of 35th District PD. And I came because your mission is pretty much the same mission that we have in terms of being a liaison between the community and police. And we've been doing a great job, and we had a wonderful meeting today that you attended, so thank you for that. So let me clarify. I want to get this right. So civilians to come here, they can come to a meeting,
Yes.
and can they, say for instance, if they had a bad experience with an officer
Yes.
in their community, could they come and pretty much talk about the issue or report a complaint in a meeting setting such as this?
They could, but we would also give you the opportunity to do that in more of a private setting. As you can tell by the gentleman to your left and to your right, these meetings are publicly streamed, and so we want to make sure that people have a safe, private place to make those complaints. We have heard at community meetings, people talk generally about issues in their neighborhood, or people talk about very specific things, but we have that ability to do that. I think at a previous meeting, Anthony took a complaint from somebody who was in the audience.
But we would definitely encourage folks to come, either set up an appointment with us, and we would have a one-on-one conversation to get through all the issues of their complaint.
And that actually reminds me, part of our invisibility has been our poor location. Right now we're on Spring Garden Street in the 900 block, and it's kind of out of the way of everything. But when are we going to move to? Okay, at some point in the not too distant future, hopefully, we will be moving to a more central location.
Located, easier to get.
These kind of words. Yes, sir.
I was going to say again, going back to the resolution,
Yes, sir.
is there something that can be added to give the commission more teeth? Because right now, what the biggest issue has been is like, okay, we can sit there and complain, but basically we have no power to subpoena, correct?
No.
We don't
No.
have right. We don't have that power.
No.
We do have
do
the
have the
power
power
to
to
subpoena.
Okay, you do.
And I think that it's often reported that we don't have teeth. In fact, we do have some teeth.
And what are those teeth, or what are those?
Subpoena power is very important. It gives us the access to get information. I think that somehow gets conflated with the ability to discipline. We clearly don't have the ability to discipline. We do have the ability to do a thorough investigation. From that investigation can come recommendations. Ideally, those recommendations can be part of some decision about discipline.
And also those recommendations are public. And so like I said, like I have you can see kind of the format for those for the Koshman case here. You can see what that looks like and that information. We've, because we've been in a transition phase for a period of time, we've not come out with very many recommendations to the public. But once those start to come out and you see those and public can see those, that's when they can get, we're in a community engagement, education, and advocacy organization. We have the ability to subpoena, we have the ability to place recommendations on policies and practices. We also participate in practices with police around the use of force. And so we are a part of the use of force review board. So we do participate in. So that is kind of where our teeth lies. Our teeth is not in that disciplinary arbitration process, but there are other ways that we can advocate and push for reform in communities. And we do have the power to do that. I'm going to take her and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
I just had a few questions, and I know there are other speakers. So, one comment. It is really hard to find the locations of these meetings, and I would love for that to be more accessible. It's really hard to share the event.
It was on the website, but you click on it and something pops up, and you can't link directly to it. So all you can do is link to the
So it's
commissioner's
just,
website.
I know the website that it's posted on is not the most accessible.
Right.
But
Thank you.
I just want to put that out there.
And it wasn't on the Facebook.
Like it's always on my calendar, but knowing where to go, like you said, if I go out to Spring Garden and then anyway. So
That's
just
a
a
very
comment.
important feedback, and so we appreciate it.
And I apologize. Some of it is the functionality of the city's website,
Yeah.
and so I'm just going to keep apologizing for that.
No, I
But we are going to we've been a bit more we've tried to be a bit more proactive with our social media feeds and with Facebook and Twitter. And so we will continue to do that. But thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out. So the question that I had is, I know that not this last summer, but the summer before last, I was at one of these meetings where the Department of Justice presented on their findings and kind of what the Philly PD has done and what they haven't done, like the different recommendations. And then I was at, I guess back in the spring here in West Philly, we had kind of that town hall meeting about the officers that were back on the streets after the shootings. And so I guess like part of what came out, I don't know if anybody else in here was at that discussion as well, but what came out of that is, you know, it seems to me that it's really like the contract that the police have with the city that in large ways protects them. And so like you said, like that teeth you don't have is that discipline. And I know they're renegotiating their contract.
It's already
done.
It's done.
But you know, but like what I heard before that is there's no point in getting involved in that because there's no way to change that. And so I guess I'm looking for, like, if we're trying to make change with some of these terrible policies we have that keep people on the force after these egregious acts, like what can y'all do or what direction can y'all give us?
So part of where I think you were going
I was going
in
to ask
that.
you, what was your, in the thing what she was saying, yes, what was your opinion, or did you put any input into this last contract? Because, okay, that was the thing, because we were looking at disciplinary, you know, the city chose to look at was pension and residency, as opposed to all the stuff we've been talking about as far as Directive 8.6, which deals with the disciplinary code for the police officers. So I was wondering why this board or this commission was not actively involved in saying, hey, we need to increase it, or we need to have some changes made so that we can bring that down. And those bad cops, we can make all the recommendations we can all day, but as long as that contract, which is arbitrated, is in effect, we have no power.
You're absolutely right, and the commission doesn't have the authority to get involved in the negotiations between the FOP and the
Recommendations?
city.
You
Pardon?
can't make recommendations?
They had a quick and tight process, but I think that there needs to be continued support that we need to look at arbitration. And I understand the notion, like it feels a lot like something we can't change, but I'm not prepared to just surrender that. So we now have a new contract with the FOP. I think it's a 3-year contract.
It's 3 years.
So it gives us
Time.
It gives us 3 years, and I think that we need to
organize.
really look at that. We need to get some strong politicians to come forward. We need to push on the state law. There are a lot of points. I don't want to say that they're weaknesses because they're not weaknesses yet, but maybe with enough pushing, they could become a little weaker.
And
What about
understand,
the Act
the
111?
police department is frustrated too. Because
Yes.
if the commissioner fires someone, the
Oh.
commissioner doesn't want that person back.
I'm totally in agreement. But
Yeah.
what about Act 111, which is arbitration law that needs to be changed? We have 3 arbiters, one's picked by the city, one's picked by the FOP, and the third one's put in there. But I've never heard of the city saying we don't want that arbiter. I think it's some kind of something agreement, which I can't find any information on the website about what that actually is. Maybe I could talk to maybe a lawyer.
In terms of the
Yeah.
collective
Yeah, the
bargaining
part
process.
something, yeah.
Yes, it's quite complicated, it's quite difficult, and one of the things that we have talked to Hans about is that we want this information kind of more accessible, and so we're hoping that as the commission is more staffed, with more commissioners, with more resources, that we will be able to reduce, and I don't want to commit for anyone who's coming into a job, but it would be good for us to have some easily understood version of a really complicated thing. The collective bargaining agreement is a really complicated thing. That doesn't mean that it can't be reduced to a format that we can all understand.
Just to piggyback on what they're saying, I know you guys heard within the past couple of years there were 6 officers indicted on narcotics charges. You know, they were just pretty much bad apples, right? Then there was Officer Josie, who open-handedly stopped the woman in the face at the Puerto Rican Day Parade, right? So we all know that all of these police officers are back on the job and they all receive back pay, right? So what does that say? That's a slap in the face for all of us because we don't feel any safer. So who's his next target, right? So these guys that were busted for narcotics charges, are they just going to change overnight? I guess what I'm saying is, it's frustrating, and you guys know I always come to these meetings just to stay abreast, but it's frustrating when I read about that, and then our mayor campaigned on the promise of stop and frisk. still stop and frisking. He also campaigned on the promise of, criminal justice reform around the contracts. Well, nothing happened. There were no public hearings. If you're not politically savvy, if you're not, in the know, you would have never known that, as this young lady said, the ink is now dried on the contracts. Now we have 3 years. Now the police have 3% raises over the, I think it's 3% per year over the next 3 years. Now the question is, how are we going to pay for this police contract? So the burden falls again on the taxpayers, right? But we have no say so. And when we vote in a progressive DA like Larry Krasner, who says enough is enough, we're going to crack down. I guess we're all here tonight because we want to see this commission empowered. We want to know what you guys can really do on our behalf so change will come about. And like David said, if cops are going to get their jobs over and over and over again, we're here, you're here. Our leaders, where are they at? Where are our state reps? Why aren't they in Harrisburg screaming from the high hill saying, we need to stop this. This arbitration process is failing everyone around us. What's the point of it if nothing comes out of it? So we here, if we go out and commit a crime, we're held accountable. But officers who swear to protect and serve, it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. It's a complete embarrassment. And in most major cities, the vast majority of the police officers, no matter what they do, they get their jobs done. So we'd like to see your commission more empowered to create more change.
I think we share that concern, we share that desire. We have to see how that plays out in terms of what the role of the commission is, but I think a collective force can certainly help.
I think just part of what we're getting a good portion of what we need, quite honestly, is funds. It's quite honestly getting the commission back up to a full quorum. They've not been in a quorum for a while. And so being able to kind of divide and conquer on these issues and I'll be cycling from acting director to being a commissioner, so there's a continuity there as well, but understanding that the buildup of not only the brains, the networks, the diversity, all of that is going to come on to the larger body as we move into the future of the PAC. Looking at kind of how we build that national network and kind of leverage what we know to be happening other places in terms of funding, in terms of policy, in terms of power, and how do we reenact that in here. Big portion of that is going to be the education piece, and we talked about that before, is, like you said, if you're political savvy, you know what's happening. How do we then become a source of resources for the community to just understand things that are happening? Like, one of the things we've done is we put together a glossary that goes up on our website, and I have a couple copies here, but just a glossary of law enforcement terms. Like, you can't find that anywhere. So just starting from someplace, because that's not existing.
I also wanted to share some information. Recently, I know you guys heard that Trump vowed to repeal the executive order that President Barack Obama placed on the restriction of local municipalities receiving military surplus, right? So when myself and another colleague inquired to Commissioner Ross, we found out that Philadelphia had in fact already received surplus prior to President Obama restricting, right? So one, I think citizens in the city of Philadelphia have a right to know what that inventory looks like. Two, what constitutes use of that caliber of weaponry. And three, why is it that when asked, both the mayor's office and Commissioner Ross both said, and there was an article, if I'm not mistaken, that said that the Philadelphia Police Department wants to receive more military surplus. So if you already have some, we don't even know what that is, but we know that there are armored tanks, bayonets, rocket launchers, grenade launchers. I can't think of any a situation that has occurred in the city of Philadelphia that would constitute use of that. I'm a veteran of the Army, and I remember the last time I had a bayonet in my hand, we were told to say kill, kill, kill. So I can't imagine okay, are we gonna provide training? Because there has to be a certain amount of training around that kind of equipment. That's gonna cost, right? So these are all things that I feel that the general public should know. And with the condition of the infrastructure in a city this old, what are people gonna do if they see big old tank rolling down the streets of Philadelphia?
So one, I agree with you. The other piece of it is we have to see what that. I agree. We have to figure out what that list of the military surplus is because it's not always weaponry, and so that's one of the things. Is like when we see pictures from St. Louis, we assume that it's the tanks, it's the Humvees, sometimes it's communications, sometimes it's water vehicles. So there are other things that folks get from military surplus that we get to you use in emergency situations. I'm not saying that's what we have. I'm just saying that there's a plethora of things you could potentially get from military surplus outside of tanks and Humvees and.
The question, I think that's something that we can pass on to the managing director's office.
Because we need to know what that
Yeah,
inventory
absolutely.
A sound question and an answer we can ask the question. I won't guarantee we will get an answer, but I think that it's an important question that we need to have some information. So thank you. So I think that the format here was that you were in the process of your report.
I had pretty much finished. I was at the last bullet, and we went into public comment naturally.
So if folks are okay, I want to then switch to the rest of the agenda to give our council an opportunity to have a report of council, at which time we'll go to new business and then any other public comment.
Okay, so I don't have too much. We're waiting for, you may remember we had requested the broader universe of stop and frisk data, and the city solicitor's office is still in the process of preparing a memorandum of understanding so that there would be certain confidentiality attached to it, but we would get the larger universe of documents. I am hopeful that that will happen before the new commissioners come on. I think that the mayor has sort of lit a fire at this point because of the appointment of Hans and the appointment of the new commissioners, and it's taken longer than we had hoped, but I think that it will happen shortly. The other thing I have is I took a look at the internal operating procedures because we decided we would revise them both consistent with the new executive order, but also just in terms of whether we felt that there should be additional bylaws or whether some should be redacted. It's very interesting because when we're up and running, and it's been a while since we've had a full complement of commissioners, but there are actually 8 subcommittees in which our commissioners may serve. One of them is a subcommittee to prepare the internal operating procedures and make recommendations. One is a subcommittee for public relations, an executive committee, a smaller executive committee, an investigatory review committee that would actually look more at individual complaints, an annual report committee, personnel committee, a mediation committee, special or ad hoc committees, and community relations. The nice thing about this is we have been completely unable to staff subcommittees of this nature, but I feel really optimistic for all of us that we will be able to staff them, after October. So that's very good news. Once we have a subcommittee, we'll take a closer look at these internal operating procedures. And Erica, you probably should be on that subcommittee too, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Any new business? So, no.
Okay.
No, just really quickly, we were talking about getting information out. Another way that we do so is we actually have a newsletter. The way it's going to work is the Monday before our commission meeting, the newsletter will go out from now on. Basically, when you put your email on there, I'll sign you up. It'll include when those meetings happen. It includes some current events, like the top stories, and as well as anything else we think is relevant and things of that nature. Also, a question I do want to answer to you. on our website. It's not as easy to work because again, I have confines in the system. But the way around it is we actually have a Google Calendar of community events. And on that Google Calendar is also our PAC meeting. And you can actually share it that way using Google. Because that is more, it's a little code word for you and I apologize. But again, I'm kind of restricted inside of a box.
Keep up.
And yeah, I promise y'all I'm working that box. If you look at our site compared to everything else, that's all.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
I don't know if it'd be a comment, but I know you talked about the subcommittees and the internal. Would that just be the subcommittees just include just the commissioners, or would that be people that might want to join that, or how's that work, where everything is closed?
So that would be the commissioners, but certainly the commissioners would welcome input from the citizens,
Okay.
right? Because the whole premise of the advisory commission is to hear the input of citizens. So next month, wait and see when the subcommittees are appointed, and I'm sure there will be plenty of good input opportunities.
Historically has been the commissioners, but I think that there's going to be, in a wanting to be more proactive and more engaging, I think that we're going to flip the script a little bit.
Okay.
You guys may have answered this question, but at the next meeting, will the entire
Yes.
This is the last of the old. Next meeting is the first of the new.
So it's 13?
It'll be 13, including Eric Atwood, our commission, and Hans Menace, the new executive director, will formally be in his role with that.
How about versus the commission?
Very.
The commission is, the list is available on our website.
It's online and there's also bios if you go under the commissioners.
So it's diverse by race, gender identity, gender expression,
neighborhood.
experiences,
Age.
geography, age. So we really, we feel that the city did a good job of getting appointing a commission that was flexible about it.
Old Philadelphia.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Older new
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Current Philadelphia.
All right.
That's actually a good question.
Yeah. Anything else? So then, as the only other voting member here, do you have a motion to adjourn?
I do.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Please.
Just one more. I just wanted, going all the way back to where we started. So, what I hear you saying is right now your budget is kind of been around 400,000, but it's fluctuated and it's not stable. And
400 is, I think, this
Like
is
a high
high. We're at our
level.
high. We're going up.
right. So I totally get. My mom was the director of the nonprofit, so I get like
Yeah.
a stable income source and like knowing how many investigators you can have and all of that. So it sounds like right now, if we wanted to say like we want to help help the PAC be like more stable and well funded, so we can make some phone calls to our local council people and say, hey, please support this.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
And also, if we, now that we have 3 years to plan for the next arbitration, what are the things that we need to put in place to start building the power to get what changes we need to see?
I think
The new
I
mayor.
think that's a great question. I think that needs to be kind of its own agenda item. When we start to think about who are the people that can make that happen, is it city council? Is it state legislators? Is it folks who just generally have some juice? Who are all those folks?
The other thing is the press is very interested in the whole collective bargaining issue. So you will notice that the articles have increased recently, right? I mean, you didn't read anything about it for a long time, and now you're reading a whole lot about it, and that is helpful too.
And the articles are all saying, nobody's talking about this.
Right.
But it's still identifying the issue, and that Philadelphia seems to have a bigger issue than some cities in terms of the arbitrations.
Just to give you a little bit of background, if you go to our website and you look at not the most recent annual report, but the penultimate, the previous annual report, there is an extensive review of arbitrations and decisions. So while they are a bit dated, I think the time frame may be from 2007 to 2013, about that, you certainly get the flavor of the number of cases in which the officer has been returned to duty, and almost all of them with pay.
Yes, yes. And I think it may be a good idea to pick up the phone and call your local council person or the council people at large and say, hey, there were no public hearings held. The public was completely shut out of this. Why is that? And, you know, of course we want to go about it in the most respectful way, but we just want to know as citizens, what are our options? Because we're not satisfied with the status quo, and moving forward, we're just not going to allow this anymore.
But if I could say that, I think that actually the media was complicit in the shutdown of information going out, actually. And the reason why I say that is because I talked personally to different people in the media. Also, I've talked to people who were involved in the contract negotiations, and everybody kept that quiet. So we have to really look at the media as being complicit in that silent period where the citizens did not know. So that's all I can say on that particular point.
I think the Washington Post is interested in it.
Yeah.
And has been sort of poking around, and you might see an article.
But I'm saying beforehand, from January, because I started this 2 years ago when Katie was actually running, and asking him, is he going to have some input to this contract as far as the disciplinary code? He said he would. I asked Larry Krasner and Beth Grossman when they were running, especially right here. They were in the library underground when they had their meeting over here. And so it's not that people haven't looked at the media, I think, in my opinion, is complicit. And that's something that I think that should be a question that should be asked.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. We will look forward to seeing you all October 16th at a to be determined yet easy to find.
Well,
Well,